Hello, today we're going to be talking about the midpoint formula. Last video we talked about the distance between 2 points. Today we're going to be talking about if we have point A and point B, what is the middle, or M, of these 2 points right here. Now, middle or midpoint should be a formula that should sound like it makes sense. And if we look at our formula, m equals x sub 1 plus x sub 2 over 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. Where the distance is a single value, the midpoint is actually a point. You end up with an x coordinate, we'll call it x sub m, comma, a y coordinate, we'll call it y sub m. And what we do in order to get that x sub m, or midpoint for x, is we add up the x's and we divide by 2. If you think about that closely, what we're really doing is find the average of the x's and the average of the y's, hence the middle. So let's go ahead and attack our first problem. Find the midpoint of the line segment with the given endpoints -3, 1, and 7, -5. So my midpoint equals, add up the x's, or -3 plus 7 divided by 2, comma, add up the y's, 1 plus -5 all over 2. So our midpoint is going to be -3 plus 7, or 4 over 2, comma, 1 plus -5, or -4 divided by 2. And when we finally simplify these off, if we can, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and -4 divided by 2 is -2. And this should be our midpoint of these 2 points here. Let's think about this for a moment. Does 2 seem like it's in the middle of -3 and 7? Yeah, it does. And does -2 seem like it's in the middle of 1 and -5? It does as well. I would strongly suggest you do a quick check, because sometimes we make some mistakes with signs in here, and we get answers and we assume they're right. Just do a quick mental check and see whether or not those make sense. All right, let's take a look at another type of problem. Instead of being given 2 endpoints, let's be given one of the endpoints and then the midpoint. A lot of times we rush through problems and we just, say we're going to find the midpoint of these 2 points, but we already have the midpoint. So let's put our midpoint on the left-hand side, which is 7, 4. That better equal adding up our x's. Well, we know the x of one endpoint is -5. We don't know the x of the other endpoint. Let's call it x. And put it all over 2, comma. We know one of the endpoints y is 2. We don't know the other endpoint y. So let's put plus y over 2. And this looks a little confusing, but if you look closely, we have 1 point equal 1 point. The only way that these points can be equal to each other is if the x's equal each other and then the y's equal each other. So let's make 2 separate equations. 7 equals this x coordinate, which is -5 plus x divided by 2. To solve this, we multiply by 2 on both sides. 2 times 7 is 14, equals, this 2 and that 2 cancel out, -5 plus x. Then to get rid of -5, we add 5 to both sides, and we get 19 equals x. So our other endpoint has an x coordinate of 19. Now if we set the y's equal to each other, the y for the midpoint is 4, and the y for our equation, find the sum of the average of the 2 other endpoints is 4 equals 2 plus y all over 2. And we're going to solve it similar to how we did the x's. Multiply by 2 on both sides. 2 times 4 is 8, equals 2 and 2 cancel out, and you're left with 2 plus y. subtract 2 from both sides, and you get 6 equals y. So the y-coordinate of our other endpoint is y. So if one endpoint is -5, 2, and our midpoint between that endpoint and another endpoint is 7, 4, the other endpoint has to be 19, 6. Now, there are 3 other questions on the other side. Why don't you give those a shot, and then let's see how they go. Hopefully you had some time to try out these remaining 3 problems. So let's give it a shot. We have 2 endpoints here. So to find the midpoint, we add up our x's, or -3 plus 9 divided by 2, and add up our y's. 10 plus 2 divided by 2. So our midpoint will be -3 plus 9 is 6 divided by 2, and 10 plus 2 is 12 divided by 2. Our midpoint is 3, 6. Great. Hopefully you got that when you tried it out. How about example 4? Find the midpoint again. So our midpoint equals our first x, or -2, plus 8 divided by 2, comma, our first y, -4, plus 4 divided by 2. Let's simplify this out. The midpoint is going to equal -2 plus 8 is 6 over 2, and -4 plus 4 is 0 divided by 2. So the midpoint of these 2 points are 3, 0. And again, if we do a quick check, we should see that -2 and 8, 3 does seem like it's right in the middle of those. And what's the middle of -4 and 4? Oh yeah, that's an easy one. It is 0. So we should feel confident in our answer here. How about our last problem? So let's take a look at this. Given an endpoint of 2, -3, and a midpoint of -5, 1, find the other endpoint. So again, let's try this out like we did on number 2. So our midpoint, let's put over here as -5, 1. That better equal, adding up our x's, so 2 plus, we're missing the other x, so we just put in x, all divided by 2, comma, that 1 better be equal to adding up our y's of our endpoints. So that would be -3 plus our other y, which is unknown, over 2. And now let's set our x's equal to our x's. So -5 equals 2 plus x all over 2. And let's set our y's equal to each other. 1 equals -3 plus y over 2. And let's solve these independent of each other. So first thing is to get rid of that 2 in the denominator, so multiply both sides by 2. So -10 equals, 2's cancel out, 2 plus x, and when we subtract 2, we get -12 equals x. So the other endpoint better have an x value of -12. Let's see about our y's. We multiply by 2 on both sides. 2 times 1 is 2 equals -3 plus y. When we add 3 to both sides, we get 5 equals y. So our other endpoint better be -2, 5. Thank you for joining me for this lesson. Hopefully this helps out when you're attempting your homework. Have a great day.